Mystery Inc. had faced its fair share of peculiar cases, but nothing quite like the abandoned luxury submarine docked mysteriously in the harbor. When the gang received a cryptic letter urging them to investigate, their curiosity got the better of them. As they approached the massive vessel, its sleek exterior loomed in the moonlight, hinting at the wealth and power it once symbolized. Velma's sharp eyes scanned the scene, her mind racing with possibilities. Little did they know, this mission would plunge them into an underwater world of deception and danger. The gang boarded the submarine cautiously, their flashlights casting long shadows across the lavish interior. Golden fixtures and opulent furniture contrasted sharply with the eerie silence. "This doesn't look abandoned," Daphne remarked, her voice echoing faintly. Shaggy and Scooby lingered near the entrance, their nerves fraying with every creak of the ship. "Like, why do all these mysteries have to be so creepy?" Shaggy whispered. Fred, ever the leader, motioned for everyone to stick together. "Let's see what we can find," he said, his tone steady. As they explored, the submarine's control room revealed itself. A marvel of technology decades ahead of its time, Velma's curiosity piqued as she examined the panels. "This equipment is fully functional," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Someone's been maintaining it." Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed through the room, freezing everyone in place. "You've walked right into my trap." A ghostly figure appeared on the monitor, its face unmistakably resembling Trump. "I'll control the oceans, and there's nothing you can do about it." As they explored, the submarine's control room revealed itself. A marvel of technology decades ahead of its time, Velma's curiosity piqued as she examined the panels. "This equipment is fully functional," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Someone's been maintaining it." Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed through the room, freezing everyone in place. "You've walked right into my trap." A ghostly figure appeared on the monitor, its face unmistakably resembling Trump. "I'll control the oceans, and there's nothing you can do about it." With Velma missing and the submarine descending into the depths, the gang regrouped in the main cabin. Daphne took charge, her calm resolve anchoring the group. "We'll search every inch of this vessel if we have to," she declared. Fred studied the control panel, trying to decipher the submarine's destination. "Whoever's behind this has a plan," he said grimly. Scooby barked softly, his nose pointing to a faint trail of oily footprints leading deeper into the ship. "Good boy, Scoob," Fred said. "Let's follow the trail and get Velma back." Following Scooby's discovery, the gang ventured deeper into the submarine's labyrinthine corridors. The faint trail of oily footprints glistened under their flashlights, leading them to an area marked "Restricted Access." Daphne examined the heavy metal door. "This looks like it hasn't been opened in years," she said, her fingers tracing the rusted edges. Fred stepped forward, his jaw set. "Let's see if we can bypass it," he said, inspecting the locking mechanism. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scooby kept watch, their nerves fraying with every distant creak and groan of the submarine's hull. Behind the door lay a storage room filled with crates, each stamped with the logo of a defunct shipping company. Velma's voice crackled faintly through the intercom system, startling them. "Fred, Daphne, can you hear me?" she called, her tone strained. Fred grabbed the nearest panel, his voice urgent. "Velma, where are you?" Her response was muffled, the signal weak. "I'm trapped in a mechanical room near the engine deck," she said. "There's someone or something here with me." As Fred mapped a route to the engine deck, Daphne uncovered a stack of documents hidden among the crates. "These are blueprints of the submarine," she said, her eyes scanning the detailed schematics. "And look at this. They include plans for modifications that weren't part of the original design." Velma's voice broke through again, more insistent this time. "The ghost, it's just a distraction," she said. "This vessel is being used to transport something illegal." The gang quickened their pace, descending further into the submarine. The air grew colder, and the hum of machinery became louder. Shaggy and Scooby lagged behind, their trepidation growing with every step. "Like, this is starting to feel like a bad idea," Shaggy muttered, clutching Scooby's fur. Scooby barked in agreement, his ears flattening. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the corridor ahead of them. "Did you see that?" Daphne asked, her flashlight flicking to the corner where the shadow had disappeared. "We're not alone down here," Fred said grimly. Reaching the engine deck, the gang found the mechanical room Velma had described. The door was ajar, and inside, Velma stood surrounded by towering machinery. Her relief at seeing them was palpable. "You found me!" she exclaimed. Before they could celebrate, the ghostly figure appeared on a monitor mounted to the wall. "You may have reunited, but you'll never stop me," it declared. As the gang exchanged determined glances, Velma pointed to a control panel. "If we can access this system, we might uncover what's really going on here," she said. Together, they prepared to face whatever truths lay hidden in the submarine's depths. With Velma safe, but the mystery deepening, the gang turned their attention to the submarine's control systems. The engine room was a cacophony of humming machines and rhythmic vibrations, its intricate mechanisms gleaming under the harsh light of overhead lamps. Velma adjusted her glasses, her fingers flying over the controls. "These logs show recent activity," she said, her tone tinged with urgency. "Whoever's running this operation is still on board." Fred nodded, his focus unwavering. "Then we need to move quickly," he replied. Daphne, meanwhile, examined the blueprints she had found earlier. "This section here," she pointed, "isn't part of the original design. It's been retrofitted for additional storage." Velma's brow furrowed as she cross-referenced the schematics with the system's logs. "That storage isn't for supplies," she deduced. "It's a hidden cargo hold, likely used for smuggling." Fred's jaw tightened. "Whatever they're transporting, we'll find it," he said. As the gang prepared to search the cargo hold, the submarine jolted violently. Lights flickered and alarms blared. "What's happening?" Daphne shouted, gripping a nearby railing. Velma scanned the monitor. "Someone's trying to override the controls," she exclaimed. Fred sprang into action. "We need to secure the bridge," he commanded. "That's where they're operating from." Shaggy and Scooby exchanged nervous glances. "Like, can't we secure the kitchen instead?" Shaggy quipped, his voice trembling. The gang navigated the labyrinthine corridors toward the bridge, the submarine's ominous groans amplifying their tension. Along the way, they stumbled upon a small room filled with crates, stamped with cryptic symbols. Velma pried one open, revealing stacks of unmarked containers. "These are contraband," she confirmed. "The ghost is just a distraction to cover up an illegal operation." Fred's eyes narrowed. "We're getting close," he said, motioning for the group to continue. Reaching the bridge, they found the ghostly figure standing before a massive control panel. "You're too late," it declared, its voice booming through the intercom. Fred stepped forward, his determination unwavering. "The game's over," he said. Velma examined the panel, her sharp eyes spotting the holographic projector casting the ghostly image. "It's a ruse," she whispered, disabling the device. As the ghostly form flickered and vanished, the real culprit, a man in a sleek suite, emerged from the shadows. "You meddling kids don't know what you've uncovered," he sneered. The gang exchanged determined glances, ready to bring the truth to light. The atmosphere in the bridge was electric with tension as the gang confronted the man behind the ghostly guise. Fred stepped forward, his flashlight cutting through the dim room. "Who are you? And what's really going on here?" he demanded. The man smirked, his demeanor cold and confident. "You've stumbled into matters far beyond your comprehension," he replied cryptically. Velma, however, wasn't buying the theatrics. "You used this submarine to cover up smuggling operations, didn't you?" she accused, her tone razor sharp. The man's expression faltered for a moment before he regained his composure. Daphne, still clutching the blueprint, scanned the schematics again. "The cargo hold is just below us," she said, her voice steady despite the rising stakes. Fred nodded. "Then that's our next stop," he said. The man lunged toward a control panel, but Velma was faster, disabling the system with a swift press of buttons. "You're not going anywhere," she said firmly. Scooby growled, his stance protective as Shaggy tried to remain inconspicuous behind him. "Like, let's get this over with already," Shaggy muttered nervously. The gang descended into the submarine's lower decks, the metallic clang of their footsteps echoing ominously. The cargo hold's doors were massive, secured with a keypad lock. "This looks heavily reinforced," Daphne observed. Velma examined the mechanism, her analytical mind already deciphering its design. "It's an old encryption system," she said. "Give me a minute." As she worked, the submarine shuddered, a reminder of their precarious position deep underwater. "We'd better hurry," Fred said, his voice tight with urgency. When the doors finally creaked open, the gang was met with a sight that took their breath away. Crates upon crates of smuggled goods filled the room, from rare jewels to high-tech equipment. "This explains everything," Velma said, adjusting her glasses. "The ghost, the sabotage, the secrecy, all to hide this operation." Daphne picked up a document from one of the crates. "These are shipping manifests," she said. "They implicate several high-profile figures. This isn't just smuggling, it's a conspiracy." Suddenly, the submarine jolted violently, throwing the gang off balance. "What now?" Shaggy exclaimed, clutching Scooby for support. The intercom crackled to life, and the man's voice echoed through the hold. "You may have found the cargo, but you'll never leave this submarine alive," he threatened. Fred helped Daphne to her feet, his expression resolute. "We need to get back to the control room and regain control of this vessel," he said. With the evidence secured, the gang braced themselves for what was sure to be their most dangerous move yet. The gang moved swiftly through the submarine's narrow corridors, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Alarms blared overhead, and the dim emergency lights bathed everything in an eerie red glow. Velma clutched the shipping manifests tightly, knowing they were the key to exposing the smuggling operation. Fred led the way, his jaw set in determination. "We need to reach the control room before he can sabotage the entire ship," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. Shaggy and Scooby trailed nervously behind, their every step hesitant. "Like, I don't know what's worse, the ghost or this creepy submarine," Shaggy muttered. Scooby whimpered in agreement, his ears flattening. Suddenly, the floor shook violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. "He's trying to destabilize the vessel," Velma shouted. Daphne grabbed a nearby railing for support. "If he keeps this up, we'll sink," she warned. Fred quickened his pace. "Not if we stop him first," he said, his voice resolute. Reaching the control room, the gang found the door sealed. Fred examined the keypad lock, his brow furrowing. "It's been overridden," he said. Velma stepped forward, her analytical mind already racing. "Give me a moment," she said, her fingers flying over the keypad. Daphne stood guard, her sharp eyes scanning the hallway for any signs of their adversary. Shaggy and Scooby huddled nearby, their nerves fraying with every passing second. "Like, can't we just leave this to the professionals?" Shaggy whispered, earning a nervous bark from Scooby. With a triumphant beep, Velma cracked the code and the door slid open. Inside the control room was a chaotic mess of flashing lights and blaring alarms. The man stood at the helm, his hands flying across the controls. "You're too late," he bellowed, his face twisted with desperation. Fred didn't hesitate, charging forward to confront him. Daphne and Velma moved to the secondary controls, their focus unshaken. "We need to stabilize the submarine," Velma said, her hands deftly navigating the control panel. As Fred wrestled with the man, Shaggy and Scooby's eyes were drawn to a large lever labeled Emergency Override. "Like, do you think that'll help?" Shaggy asked. Scooby barked, his tail wagging hesitantly. With a deep breath, they pulled the lever. The submarine shuddered, and the alarms abruptly stopped. "You did it!" Daphne exclaimed, a smile breaking through her tension. The man slumped in defeat as Fred restrained him. "It's over," Fred said firmly. Velma glanced at the now stabilized controls. "And just in time," she added. The gang had regained control of the submarine, but their work was far from over. With the submarine stabilized and the alarm silenced, a tense calm settled over the vessel. Fred tightened the restraints on the man who had orchestrated the entire operation, his expression a mix of frustration and relief. "You've got a lot to answer for," Fred said, his tone firm. Velma stepped forward, holding up the stack of evidence they had gathered. "These documents tie you to smuggling operations spanning multiple countries," she said. The man glared at her but said nothing, his defiance crumbling under the weight of his capture. Daphne scanned the control room, ensuring every system was secure. "We need to surface and alert the authorities," she said, her voice steady but urgent. Velma nodded, her hands flying over the controls. "I've plotted a course to the nearest harbor," she announced. Shaggy and Scooby, still jittery from the chaos, exchanged relieved glances. "Like, I can't wait to feel solid ground under my feet," Shaggy muttered, earning a bark of agreement from Scooby. Daphne smiled. "Not much longer now," she reassured them. As the submarine began its ascent, Fred turned to Velma. "What else did you find in those manifests?" he asked. Velma adjusted her glasses, her brow furrowed. There are names important ones. Politicians, business leaders. This operation was bigger than just him, she said, gesturing to the restrained man. Fred's expression darkened. We'll make sure the authorities get everything they need, he said. Daphne placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. We've done our part, she said. Now it's up to them. The submarine broke the surface with a jarring lurch, sunlight flooding through the portholes. The gang emerged onto the deck, the fresh air a welcome relief after the stifling confines of the vessel. A Coast Guard ship approached in the distance, its sirens cutting through the quiet. Looks like our ride is here, Fred said. The restrained man remained silent, his defiance replaced by resignation. Velma held up the evidence as the Coast Guard officers boarded the submarine. This should give you everything you need, she said. As the man was led away in handcuffs, the gang regrouped near the mystery machine, which had been towed to the harbor. Another mystery solved, Daphne said, her smile bright despite the ordeal. Shaggy stretched, his relief palpable. Like, I'll take a haunted mansion over a haunted submarine any day, he quipped. Scooby barked in agreement, wagging his tail. Fred turned to the group, his voice filled with pride. We did good work today, he said. Velma nodded, her gaze thoughtful. And we uncovered a much larger conspiracy in the process, she added. With the